All right.
Not hearing anything, turn up volume. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you might want to go down here. Right, that one.
okay, so that the audio is coming from your computer as opposed to coming from the TV. Is that okay?
I guess so. Can you hear? Can anyone out there hear?
Yeah, Max.
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, can.
Yeah, super.
Excellent.
Great.
All right. Okay, we're here. We're in business, at least for a while. So,
Yeah.
I want to just go around the table first and let's introduce ourselves. I'm Barb. And oh,
Hi, I'm Nick Allen with Clean Energy Resources, the U of M extension.
okay.
Bill Taft, Ely Field Naturalist.
Mary Louise Eisenhower.
Jody, we missed you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well then.
Out of sight is out of mind.
Jody Chapin.
Elton Brown, concerned citizen.
Clark, Ely residents.
Sean Clark, Mr. Katie.
Hudson Kingston.
Mike, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you did great.
Oh, we've skipped the back row. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
I'm Mary Blum. I'm here from Portland, Oregon.
Welcome.
I'm Susan Nestor from Ely.
Gerald Tyler from up North Dodge, Community Area Development Association.
Okay, we get this back around so that it's just this so I can actually see. Sort of. Oh, okay.
And it is online.
In online, we have Max.
And
Max Dan is in the
Thanks
UK.
from England.
Oh, great. Oh, goodness.
And Anne Euling from down the road. Do I have anyone else to let in? No. Okay. So I'm starting with a request from Mike Overend. The legislature is in session right now. There's going to be a bill introduced about e-waste recycling. The last e-waste recycling, electronic waste recycling. The last update was in 2007, and it had mostly to do with CRT TVs and fax machines. And e-waste looks a bit different now. And there are several instances where people have put lithium-ion batteries into landfills, and there have been fires and some damage. So that's one reason to do it. Another is that there's a huge amount of good material that's just being wasted. And since we are threatened with copper nickel mines up here, we need to make sure that we get all the good stuff out of the e-waste and put it back into circulation. And so Mike put together a letter which he hopes that people will send to Housechild and to Straba to let them know that we care. And I sent this out, I think, yesterday. So it's got a lot of information in it. If you think that you would like to do it, you can use the letter the way it is, just add your name at the bottom. Or if you want to torture the letter the way you want it to look, please feel free to do that. But I said I would try to do that. And I looked up how they do e-waste, and it's fascinating. First, they sort out all the, the junk from the e-waste. Then they sort out the e-waste into all the different categories. And then they save the bits that they think that might actually still be usable the way they are. And then they demanufacture it. And then they chop it into little bits. And then there's magnetic separation to get all the iron and steel out. And then there's some sort of eddy current separation to get the rest of the metals out that aren't ferromagnetic. And then they dump it into water and see what floats. And then what they do after that, I don't know. But by that, they have all sorts of different waste streams, and some of it, I think, still goes into the landfill.
Sure.
But the stuff that goes into the landfill is pretty safe at that point. And there's about 10 different metals that can be recovered in large amounts and huge numbers of dollars involved with this. So the way it would be paid for is they want to put a 4% tax on electronic goodies that you buy in the state that pays for the waste recycling. I think it would be a great thing to do, so.
So then we'd have a 12% tax on every piece of equipment we buy?
There is already a tax, you're correct.
Well, sales tax.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if the 4% goes on top of the 12%.
oh, it'd have to, it'd have to.
Yeah.
Do you have the name of the bill?
E-waste, it's in the email I
Oh.
sent out yesterday.
Oh,
It has a bill number, which I can give you after this meeting.
okay.
Are you writing it?
I'm helping the group that's working on writing it, yes.
Okay, yes.
They have smarter people actually writing it, but I attend a lot of meetings.
And so you're lobbying for it. Did I misrepresent it?
No, it was good. I do think that recycling is once it gets to that later stage where it's flotation, it looks a lot like mining. So like Polymet was gonna have a flotation tank too, and I
Right.
mean, it's really the same process. So either it gets separated through flotation or that sort of thing, or it goes into a burner, which is a common way of separating out metals. So like there are smelters in Sudbury, Ontario, and other places. Recycling is just mining products for metals and useful things, and the nice thing about doing that is that it's always going to have more ore in it than low percentage deposits. So it's really just like easier mining, I guess, is one way to think of recycling from e-waste. It definitely does have some gross waste products, but again, it's like mining, only in many ways, hopefully easier and with less waste at the end, which I think has positives and negatives, and it's certainly worth looking into better. One pet issue I have is that although they're trying to act full to everyone, I also have been advocating for just banning e-cigarettes entirely, because they are almost impossible to recycle because they're a combination of deadly nicotine and lithium-ion batteries. So they're extremely hard for recyclers to deal with, and they mostly just burn them because they can't take them apart. So the one point of this law is that it will hopefully incentivize people who make electronics to make them in a way where they easily come apart so that they can be easily recycled. And that's a hard law to write, but if you get it just right, then we will stop having products that can't be recycled, and that would be a very good thing indeed.
Great, okay, all right. I'm gonna hand it over now to Nick.
Well, okay. So hi, everybody. So I'm Nick Allen. I work for Clean Energy Resource Teams. Today I'm mostly going to talk to you about things that are coming out for the Inflation Reduction Act that will be useful to you, but I'll give you just like a little bit about who I am and that sort of stuff. So I live on the Iron Range. I live in Zim. If you're into birding, you may have been to Zim for to see the great grays, or I live there. Yeah, all kinds of people live there. Actually, there's about 300 of us left. So there's not that many,
You're
but
on a farm, right?
I do. I own a little farm in the bog. So it's my family farm. My grandparents stopped farming a long time ago, but eventually I hope to be farming again. So, and we have a solar thermal furnace on the farm, which people are usually very excited about.
What is that?
It's well, I'm not super qualified to explain it, but maybe you've heard of Eighth Fire. They're a native indigenous owned. Sorry, that's all right. They're a native owned organization, and they just recently taken hold of this product, it is a solar thermal panel. So it's, instead of making electricity, it produces a bit of heat. I would say that before it's 32, 35 degrees outside, it will keep a decently sized house. That house has 4 bedrooms in it, about 50 degrees. Without the propane kicking on. Then when it gets colder, they balance the kind of, the solar thermal panel still on, so the propane doesn't have to kick on as much. When people visit us, they're usually most interested in that, or the birds. So they really like that thing, but we got it actually through a grant that was partially funded through CERTs. So Clean Energy Resource Teams, it's funded by the Department of Commerce. They wrote it into a law, like some legislation, about 20 years ago. This is our 21st year. And it is a partnership of 4 bigger organizations, the University of Minnesota being one of them, RSDP, which stands for, does anybody know what RSDP stands for? Resource Development, Resource Sustainability, I don't know, but RSDP, which is also under the U of M. And 2 other partners, Great Plains Institute and the Southwest version of RSDP. So the 4 of us work for different people. Our paychecks come from different people, but we're all doing the same thing. And I'll just say our mission because that's the easiest way to explain it. Our mission is to connect individuals and communities in Minnesota to resources they need to identify and implement community-based clean energy projects. So we do that a lot of ways. There are almost 60 programs in CERTs. I'm not going to tell you about all of them today because that would be a very boring speech. So you can use our website, which I think Barbara will be able to share with you after all of this. We don't have to switch to the website. So I have things here that you can take from me at the end if you'd like. I'm really an environmentalist, so I'm not super keen on just handing out paper that you're going to throw away. But if it will be useful to you, please do take it. I have business cards. I have some things with our websites. We have this one that has like the QR codes, so you can just use your phone to get to the site. These are pretty useful and easy to recycle. So, but the IRA, are you guys aware of it? Has anybody here used an IRA rebate or tax thing yet? So Hudson has, will you tell us?
We intend to use it for our heat pump and our electric car we got last year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a pretty good amount of money in the EV for sure. I think that's so 6,000.
We got a used electric car, which is $4,000 back on a used car.
That's awesome. Yeah, there are a lot of those kinds of incentives coming down right now. So I can tell you a little bit more about us. That's all CERT stuff. Let's talk about the IRA stuff. That's much more interesting. Give me 2 seconds.
While she's doing that, I want to say that EV event you put together was awesome.
Yeah, it worked out all right.
So many cars, so many
Thanks for
people.
coming. Yeah.
It's a really good turnout, I thought.
Yeah.
What do you think the turnout was?
I was estimating 100 people, but no one counted, or that was about how many people signed up for things at the tables, but I don't know for sure.
How many people took a drive?
I did.
Chat. I will get back to you on that. It was less than 100 people, but the cars were busy the whole
I
time.
thought it was 50-ish.
Yeah,
Emails that I've
48,
seen.
yeah.
Which is really, that's great.
Yeah.
I haven't driven it there, but I went to Lundgren's and drove a F-150 Lightning. That was pretty fun.
Then I could come in anytime and drive one.
Yeah, they're very cool. They're very cool. So those rebates are one way. There's also like CERTs, we offer some seed grants. Seed grants obviously are little pots of money. So there's a current round happening right now. We're doing some clean energy building training with a group out of Duluth. We're doing a survey to see if maybe a co-op in Grand Marais could use some solar panels to eliminate some brownouts that they're having happening there. We're just doing a feasibility study, but about every 2 years, like we're government funded. So, sometimes they're arguing about how much money we get and that kind of thing, but about every 2 years, we do a round of that funding. I would say that those grants average $5,000. And the projects always have to benefit more than just yourself. So it's never really a project that's just on a house, but if it was like a small community of houses, that's maybe possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So seed grants are one way, and we also always have a giant running list of grants and things, but through that aren't ours, you know, we just are like McKnight and other people share grants with us. So you can find those on our website, which is here. But with the IRA specifically, so there's a couple of ways that you can interface with this stuff if you're not looking to get, like if you're not planning to buy an EV right now, but you are in support of other people having access to those rebates. The best way for you to do that is to become, it is currently called an Inflation Reduction Act ambassador, but in March, it will become a community energy ambassador. It's the same thing. We just are in the process of rebranding it, because if you say IRA to just an average person on the street, they don't like, what are you guys talking about? So to become an ambassador, this is on the website. Really, you just input your email address and then we start sending you stuff. So there is a toolkit. The toolkit is very helpful. It is updated every few months with like income requirements, which rebates are live. If there are things soon, we are hoping mid 2024, you'll be able to go to Lowe's and buy Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, wherever, and buy some appliances where that rebate happens at the same time.
Energy resource teams.
I don't know if somebody's
Yeah, that was-
asking the question or
Good.
we're okay.
He muted himself.
Oh, okay. I was like, I could answer a question, but, oh, what was I talking about? The ambassador program. So, oh, so you just, you sign up and, you'll get some education from us, which is cool. You'll have access to the toolkit and you'll have the best part of being an ambassador is that you'll get, very pointed newsletter. So CERTs already sends out a newsletter. Some of you probably receive it. It is great, but it's not just like this part of the IRA came out. This funding has been released. These rebates are active, and that IRA ambassador newsletter is. We'll also help you connect to community. You can invite me if you want to, but if you want to speak somewhere, you can see I'm not the greatest public speaker in the world, but I'll do it. But you can talk to people about what those rebates are and how to get involved and how really what I want is to make sure that rural Minnesotans aren't missing out on all of these opportunities to clean up their energy use and to save some money while they're doing it.
So if I'm thinking about installing a heat pump, is this one of the first things to do?
Yes.
And will someone from CERTs come and advise me? Oh, that's crazy where you live, or go ahead and here's a list of contractors. How does that?
Yes and no. We're working on the lists of contractors, but we are, I can't remember your name, sir, but you said you do workforce development. We're currently working with workforce folks to build up the people who can come and do an audit at your house. Because there's not a lot of them in Minnesota. And obviously, like I serve 11 counties, so I can't do them all. But we are hoping to get more people trained. There are several projects that have started like in the Twin Cities. And I'm a rural CERTs person, so I want to make sure that those programs that are happening in the Twin Cities to train an auditor to come to your house are being duplicated. Soon they'll be doing it at Fond du Lac. I think that project starts in June. But like right now, if you call AEOA, who's the main provider around here for that sort of thing at an affordable rate, they don't have people. So they'll just say, no, like we'll put you on a list. So, so we're working on that part, but you would want to look at CERT's website first, check out our toolkit. It will give you things like a nice list of what your income requirements need to be for some of the projects and what is available now. And when we have the information, it'll also say, what is available in 5 months, in 6 months, what's happening in 2025. So you can plan really well. This is really with the IRA, this is really a time to be strategizing. Like plan, are you buying that car? Are you planning to put an air source heat pump in? Do you just need triple thick windows on your house? And can you maybe save some money to do that? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, mostly.
Great. Okay, what part did I miss? Maybe we can expand on.
I guess, getting an audit, is that a requirement?
No, it's not,
Okay.
but the audit will help you to know how many BTUs of energy you're
Mhm.
already using, how much that's costing you maybe.
Yeah, I know all those
And
things,
like
so,
the
yeah.
pressure, there's some of that pressure thing about how
Mhm.
much you're losing out of your house, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So it could be very helpful. You might not need one. So no,
Okay.
it is definitely not required.
I would just add that the CERTs website has so much friggin' information about heat pumps and rebates that if you're interested in reading up, Barb, you could educate yourself. And then also I will put in a plug for our local HVAC salespeople because they will explain to you how they work, how they will save you money. And they won't mention climate change once, but they will give you the necessary information you will need for your installation.
That's great.
Yeah.
Who's the local provider?
In town, it's Ojala's, and then there's a bigger company called Masada Heating out of Hibbing that's who we went with for our house, and they have a guy named Randy who will, no matter what, he'll make sure that you have the information you need
I
on
think,
the heat
I
pump.
think they
Maybe
put
not.
in my hot water tank. It was
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Great company. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're,
It sounds like though, from what you're saying, that having an audit is a logical first step, but it's really hard to have an audit done.
it's not always, in Ely, I would say it might be more challenging. Yeah. Cause I know like in Duluth, there's sometimes a wait list, and Duluth has obviously lots more providers because it's a much bigger space.
Would people want to reach out to their own power company to get information on audits that are paid
And
for?
Lake Country Power does have some resources.
And I did that, but they never called me back.
Are we on an email thread talking about this maybe?
No.
Somebody was, and what I did was contact Great River, so it's like Great River provides the power to Lake Country Power, and Great River will be like, do that thing, so sometimes that's helpful. But you can always loop me in, and sometimes I'm able to nudge people a little bit.
I just met a friendly advisor at Lake Country Power. I'll give you her
Randy?
name.
Is it Randy?
No,
Like Country Power has been pretty supportive, so maybe they just haven't had a chance to or something, but I also, where I live, we also have like Country Power, so they've been pretty good. Are there there's a lot of information, which is why I don't have like a nice bulleted list. So are there specific things that you all are interested in? I'd rather discuss those. Yeah, please.
What's the downside of the heat pump?
That's a great question. That might be a little more technical than I could answer. I'm a little like, how do we fund the projects and that kind of thing? I don't know.
Would somebody object to it? I
No.
don't.
They have an upfront cost.
The cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you often need to have, whatever your current heating solution is, you might not want to rip that out. You might want to leave it in as backup for like the absolute coldest week of the year.
But what if it's a new construction?
New construction, then you can easily get a heat pump furnace that has, like its backup, it has resistive electrical as the, like, when it's very cold, it just kicks on a different electrical system.
And what's the cost?
I have not done one of those, but I think it'd be like 19,000 or so for a full furnace. Yeah, and with like heating ducts and all that sort of stuff, but you can also get an air source or a mini split that doesn't require ducting put onto any house.
and then what's the rebates on that 19,000?
So if one goes to the recording of my presentation from last time, the rebates are between $3,000 if you stack the federal one and the one you get from your utility, up to $15,000 if you are low income for your area and you wait for the state of Minnesota's $4,000 rebate to kick in. You could get as much as $15,000 in rebates and tax incentives.
And what the website says is that there's a tax credit up to 30% of the cost. between 2023 and 2032 for the installation, so that's up to $2,000. And in addition, this is, it's long, but there's a new point of sale rebate for people who are earning 150% of the area median income. So it is an income cap for this part of things, but that would apply to heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, heat pump clothes dryers, which I haven't actually seen one of those yet. Yeah, but that rebate is up to $14,000, so if you meet that median income guideline. Yeah, and I would say that when we're talking about heat pumps out and about, there are folks who are like Hudson, they have much more technical knowledge for it than I do. But the main pushback we get is that it's too cold in northern Minnesota for them. But I just from experience, I would say that that is not necessarily the case. Like Hudson said, you can have a backup system, but we have deep winter greenhouses that are utilizing heat pumps. And I mean, it's a greenhouse is not a super well insulated building, right? So they're still functioning. They might not grow tropical flowers, but they can still grow microgreens in the winter.
One thing I'm starting at the beginning level of all this.
Yeah.
Do they make noise? The heat pump? Cause
Not-
I
not much.
really wanna live in a quiet environment.
Sure.
Not much. It has a fan that runs outside of your house, so like inside our house, I can't hear it, and when I'm standing outside next to it, I can hear the fan moving, but it's not like a,
It's not like an air conditioner.
no, it's not, nothing like that. It's just you hear, it's sort of like a box fan,
Mm.
but it's made to run a lot, so it's better made than a box fan, and it's not really pushing a gale of air, it's just moving some air.
I was wondering, does Lake Country Power have access, customers have the same access to rebates that NP&L customers have? Because last I heard,
What's MPNL?
Minnesota Power and Light.
Yes. Actually, I would say that, I mean, I can't say exactly, but they're very comparable.
Yeah, because they were kind of resistant to any sort of climate stuff because
We don't talk about the climate stuff. We're talking about
Save
energy
money.
savings.
Save money.
So, so I would say, I mean, I get you, like,
so I get a
I would say
rebate
that they are
for
sometimes.
solar panels. Can I sell power back to the grid?
So
To
that's-
Country Power?
That's different.
I
So the
don't think-
rebates are very similar between Lake Country Power and Minnesota Power. The way the co-ops accept electricity back from you is more dictated by the co-op, and it's not quite as straightforward as how Minnesota Power or Excel takes the electricity back. So it is interesting that if you have a different power company, it might not pencil out for you to get solar based on how they structure their rates. In which case you're incentivized to take your house off grid and they lost a customer,
Right.
that's their mistake.
Because I, at the meeting a year and a half ago, the CEO president guy says, what do you want to put solar panels up for? Right to everybody that was there. He said that.
And that was at Minnesota Power.
No. Lake
Oh, I was
Country
gonna say,
Power,
they've done some huge arrays, so that would surprise me.
they were kind of,
We worked on it, well, I used to run an organization called Rural Renewable Energy Alliance, and we worked with Minnesota Power and some other providers to put up 80 acres of solar, so they're pretty cool with it, but
so power's good.
Lake Country Power, my mom and I have been at those meetings for about 10 years, and the needle budges maybe incrementally, but we're not there yet. We've said that same thing, like, okay, we'll take our house off grid.
Plus, I also heard that they, some years ago, were, the or the gas and oil companies in Dakotas were gonna give them enough power to run their whole, power station. And they said, now we get coal from another suppliers that we're gonna burn coal. They're just not, they're not interested in it. They're still
Well, and we won't even talk about the plant that Minnesota Power wants to build in Superior.
By the way,
Wisconsin.
you're talking about being off the grid, you cannot go off the grid if you live in the city of Ely. Did you know that?
Yeah,
Really?
the city will not let that happen. Yeah.
You'll be sued in
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yep. No, especially if you try to hook up to the sewer and not the electricity,
Ew.
that makes Harold real mad.
Why is that?
Cause basically they need a certain number of customers, They just sort of don't want a construction inside their service territory that's not hooked up to their service.
That's a contractual relationship between the city and whoever, Minnesota Power.
Yeah.
You can't go off the grid.
Yeah. So, we're only recently at CERTs, but the, Ely Senior Center has a really neat solar heating, system, and I just looked, and in 2010, CERTs helps them get a grant and help plan the whole system out, and this group used to meet in that senior center where,
Oh, cool.
where the heat was coming from the sun, so, yeah, do you think there will be funding for like bigger projects for like the senior center or this lovely above the Napa store room that we're sitting in right now? Get us some nice windows. and maybe some
Absolutely.
Solar panels.
Yeah, I do think there'll be, and there's a bunch of new solar things coming out that I'm not an expert on. But one of them is solar for small businesses.
Mhm.
So a lot of those things you just mentioned fit in there. Nonprofits are included in the businesses. That's not always the case, but in this case, in the webinar I went to Thursday, it is. Things always change, but, so there's solar in schools, which I am also not an expert in. We have a gentleman who's, maybe some of you have ever talked to Peter Lindstrom, but maybe not. But if you ever look at any of our webinars, Pete is on there because we like to plunk him in front of people all the time. And he'll tell you all about how to get solar on your school. I don't know if the Ely school has ever shown any interest, but we will just continue to reach out. At CERTs, we are not a political organization. We don't, and we are here to help you. We will never come out into the community and say, these are the things you need to do. So, we're just here to provide the resources and hope to connect you to them. But there's so much money coming out for solar right now. McKnight and, I think it's called Ideal
Right.
Energy, but yes, the answer is yes, and I will keep you guys in the loop when I see them.
Um,
You can always go to our website too. There's like a running grant list on
Right,
the website.
you got Mike.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good to hear you.
we can't hear him.
Sorry, try that. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Thank you for being here. And I was going to comment on the solar for schools that I wrote a column that was published in the Lake County Press and the Cook County News Herald last Friday that encouraged school districts to look at and incorporate solar for schools. And I followed that column up with a letter to the school superintendents and the members of the school board for both districts. I will tell you that if you're interested in getting that column, I'd be happy to share it with you. And if you guys, I don't even know the name of the school in the Ely area or in Cook area for Keith, but I would be happy to share that column and also the cover letter that I sent out to the superintendent school board members. And I know that CERTs is an excellent partner for advocating for solar for schools. So if that's of help, let me know and I'll be happy to share it with Barb Jones.
Yeah, I would love to read that article. Cook County, I think is Cook is 2142 school, so it's like
Yes, it's 20.
North Ridge, South, something.
Ely 696.
696.
That's Ely, and he said Cook, so I was trying to figure out the.
I know. I'm the wrong person to be asking. You should be
It's north,
asking
I think
the
it's
Cook
north,
editor, not the Ely
some,
editor,
sure, it's
okay?
north of something. When I was a kid, they were all separate schools, the 2142 schools, but now they sort of squished a bunch of them together. But at any rate, the Ely, the superintendent from the Ely district has been pestered a lot then, which is good. Because I sent them, an email or a letter or something the other day too, and we follow up with a phone call. So maybe that'll give them some incentive to jump in. It's really a bummer because, what are those charter schools are not included. And so far, they're the people who have reached out to me the most. So that's really a bummer. We will try and find them other things to connect them to. Thank you. I've been there. I just couldn't remember the name.
Would the community college be eligible for any of these grants?
Huh. You know that I don't know, but I will.
They have
Now I'm gonna dig and look.
very nice roof
Yeah.
Part of the
they do.
Minnesota educational
and a
system.
lot of smart people.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably students that seem very interested in going to a school that has
And
green.
I wonder
technology.
about vehicles too, because
There is a vehicle, there's a whole thing about, vehicles happening right now, so, again, I don't know the numbers, but there of some of those, it's like, EV buses. Some of the cost comes to like 70% of it being covered by a grant, or by a government incentive, so I don't know, please don't quote that number, but it's, when I was calling around about it, there's a lot of concern because this thing happened in Chicago that I know Hudson knows about, but some EVs weren't charged properly and then wouldn't charge. I don't know, but, so that happened at the same time as this EVs for schools came out. So almost every conversation was like, well, they won't run up north. So we'll continue to do some education on it, but there are some incentives for vehicles for schools.
there's so many in this community even on the whole. I mean, every outfitter's got a fleet of vans and
Yeah.
and they're just traveling around the
Yeah.
area. I mean, it's not distance travel from the most part.
Right. We should get one for Zim for all the birders.
Cut down on the traffic.
So I'll just tell you about these resources. I don't know if I've used up my time or not. It looks like just about. So, but
Take another 2 minutes.
the things that I have here for you, please check out our website. And if you are interested in being engaged with community around specifically the IRA incentives, sign up to be an ambassador. It's not a huge commitment at this point. So we're not expecting you to become an ambassador, attend a course, and then go out on tour across northern Minnesota. Right now, it's a building phase. So it'll be a place where we share information with you and you share it with your community. And if you want like a pointed conversation on anything that's covered on CERTs, I'll be happy to show up again. So I'll be at Earth Fest in Virginia. I'm around, so I'm very accessible. So here I have my business card that'll tell you how to get in touch with me specifically. And then this is the sheet that if you are interested in having a piece of paper at all, this is the one that I suggest. It lists all of the different parts of the website. There's heat pumps, that I think leads you to a webinar. There's a home energy guide, renewable energy for Greater Minnesota, our seed grants. Right now, that'll just tell you what the current seed grants are, but it'll give you an idea of maybe you can start dreaming up a project because you've got about 2 years now before the seed grants happen again. Yeah, there's a job board. Those are all jobs in clean energy, etc. So that's a piece of paper. This is the running guide for the rebates and tax credits. You can always just keep the website is important. The piece of paper isn't. That website is frequently updated. Our comms people are awesome. They're much smarter than me. This is just an energy for single family homes. It's like it's not specific, but it talks about things like insulation, air leaks, etc. And then I don't know if any of you in here are business owners, but if you are, PACE is an excellent grant program that helps fund things. So again, you'll end up talking to Peter Lindstrom, who frequently somebody will say, this girl at a place told me to talk to Peter Lindstrom, and then Peter sends you back to me anyway, but we'll just CC each other, so it'll be okay. Are there any questions on any of the rattling off I just did?
Who sets the overall agenda of what CERTs does?
That's a complicated question. So, some of it is the government. Just a little bit. But really we have steering committees. You'd also be welcome to join the steering committee. We have the Northeastern Steering Committee has space for maybe 2 people right now. And the steering committee it's not like a board. Like if you've ever sat on a board, I'm on 2 boards right now. So it's not a lot of meetings. There's not like a monthly meeting. We meet quarterly. You guide our work by telling us what the needs of your community are as you see them. And the steering committee also votes on seed grants. So that's a little bit of strategy at like a ground level. And you can be a seed grant or steering committee member. You're not eliminated from the seed grants. So you just advocate yourself. You don't vote at that point, but you can still apply for one, which is cool. And we are also part of RSDP. So RSDP has all of their little boards all over the state. They're not little, actually, they're all like 50 people. But those folks also input their strategy. So our directors, the director at GPI, Great Plains Institute, they all come together and congeal and move our mission accordingly.
Do you do any lobbying?
No. Yeah, we don't do any government or any of that.
At the Earth Fest, will you be tabling or will there be a presentation? From the presentation
I
points?
think we're presenting, but I'm definitely gonna table and I'll probably have solar robots. I think that'll be fun.
You should make this Peter guy present too.
I'll try. Any other questions?
I don't know. Does anybody else here have experience of heat pumps?
I have,
You do? You have one?
no, I had an experience when I lived in Idaho. The heat pump worked for at least 4 years. And then I had to threaten to bring a lawsuit against the company. When it cost another, whatever, to reinstall it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Yeah,
The life of a heat pump, especially in cold weather,
yeah,
is not something you want to promote.
yeah. I mean, I
Am I?
think a fully installed heat pump is a disaster,
It is a
which is what
disaster.
you're saying. And I think you're absolutely right, and that's, you wanna shop around and you wanna go with both a manufacturer that is very reliable and an installer who's very reliable, who will come back if they broke it. Because things break, and it is a miraculous machine, but it's also a machine where if it's leaking coolant, then it's not gonna work anymore. So you definitely have to have confidence in your installer, and that's why it's great that they have been, installing these up here in Ely proper and in the area for a long time now. And I think things are getting better in terms of the technology, and they are going down to lower temperatures, and lasting a long time. But yes, they certainly, if it's broke, if it's installed poorly, then it's not gonna keep working, and you're gonna wanna have a warranty on the work in addition to a warranty on the manufacturing.
The fellow that was here last month, I guess it was. I guess he indicated, or I thought he was making a point that it could supplement, especially in this climate, another fuel oil or gas or whatever.
Yeah.
But to try to depend upon a heat pump providing your heat for a 2,000 square foot home in Ely, Minnesota is not something I think you would
So the
buy
person
into.
that was saying that was me, so I remember us talking about this. But the size of your house doesn't matter. You can get a bigger heat pump to deal with a larger area, and the people who install it are very good at calculating out how much of a heat pump you would need. I think you were actually right. I said backup, but supplemental is the right word, because some years you're not going to use it at all, but you do want to have something just in case. Heaven forfend it breaks, but also just for those very cold days of the year. I know that Mike has his hand up, and he's had heat pumps longer than I have, so he's had it through much colder winters in Two Harbors than I just have had mine for this last year. So certainly there are certain times in the last couple of years mine would have turned itself off, but I don't know if Mike was gonna talk about heat pumps or what his thought was on that.
Yep, I was just gonna say that we've had our heat pumps. Our home is a 1965 home that leaked like a sieve. And we had it completely remodeled for energy efficiency in 2020. They took out all of our old off-peak electric heat source, our off-peak electric furnace, ripped it out, threw it away, put in 2 heat pumps. One is ducted, one is a mini split. And we do have backup heat if we need it. We have never needed it. And the heat pumps work great. And that is our sole source of heat. Except in an emergency, we have a wood burning insert, or we can turn on electric resistance heat if we really want to, but we never have. So the key is you really have to have a well-insulated home to make them work optimally. It doesn't mean you can't use them in a less than perfectly insulated house, but the goal is do a good job of taking care of weatherizing your home first, spend the money there, and then an air source heat pump makes good sense. And I put a link in the chat to the Minnesota Air Source Heat Pump Coalition, which is another great resource to get help with people that can put air source heat pumps in your home.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And they have information about incentives on their website too. But I think Mike's point about getting the insulation first is like why you would want to do the energy audit, because those people will cover all of those options and not just sell you a heat pump, which is what I was saying people could do.
Yeah.
So what's the life expectancy of it in this kind of a climate?
I mean, if it's installed correctly, I was quoting in our last presentation 15 years, but that's because that's what the warranty on the workmanship I got. I paid $600 and got a 15-year warranty. So I expect they won't come back for 15 years. 16 years from now, they might be back. But I was saying, and some other people had comments here about how, like, when you want to get a slightly better model, they actually can just change the outdoor piece that looks like an air conditioner outside your house. So in 15 years, I may just want one that goes down. Mine currently goes down to -18. I would love one that goes down to -25. And those are like starting to come on the market now, but I didn't want to wait for like this particular company to have that one. So I went with a dependable company that I know will help me out, or that will meet 99% of my needs. And then we burn wood, so I have pretty good backup if I'm home.
And the life expectancy of a propane furnace is between 15 and 20 years, depending on its quality. Natural gas, I think, is less, or maybe it's around 15, 20 years. So I would say it's comparable. I don't think air source heat pumps have been used that long, so there's probably testing and things that will be happening. So.
Mike, how long have air source heat pumps been sold in the US? Do you know that one? I remember in the last.
No, and I'm not gonna win the prize.
Okay.
But not all air source heat pumps are created equal.
My wife says not all air source heat pumps are created equal. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about Clean Heat Minnesota?
Okay, yeah, this is beyond CERTs now, but there is a coalition that just kicked off I think late last year that is called Clean Heat Minnesota. And the idea is to prepare Minnesota for heating all of our homes without creating greenhouse gas pollution. And this is consistent with an existing legislative goal that says by 2050, we will have net zero greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really not asking for any new legislation at all. the legislation already says we are going to hit net zero in 2050. And this is a coalition that's saying with focusing on equity and making sure that nobody gets left behind, how are we gonna actually do that? And they are engaging primarily right now with natural gas utilities. So Excel Energy has a giant natural gas utility, CenterPoint. Most of those are supplying urban parts of Minnesota. I am participating in Clean Heat because I live in rural Minnesota and I want to make sure that they don't forget about fuel oil and propane and those of us who live in areas that are not served by natural gas. So a lot of the solution is heat pumps, is electrical heat and ways to get that into people's houses and get it to low income people especially. But also I'm hopeful that there will be a just transition for people who are currently working in the fuel oil and propane industries so that they don't get left out either. So they're good people who live in these communities. And just because they drive a truck now doesn't mean they shouldn't have a very good job going forwards. And that's something I think we should be thinking about, especially since the deadline is 2050, but it could come a lot sooner than that. These heat pumps and other technologies work very well. And small businesses in our area could get left behind if they are not helped to transition to these newer technologies.
So what can Ely Climate Group do to help the cause of clean heat?
Ely Climate Group and individual people can join the Clean Heat Minnesota Coalition and get more information about it. Like I said, their focus will initially be on natural gas utilities, which none of us is getting our heat from a natural gas utility. But just by participating, you'll be getting the information about it. And also you'll be able to do what I do, which is in every meeting, I say, what about propane? And just remind people that we are up here and that, it's a lower population of people, but a much larger portion of the state relies on delivered fuels of oil and propane and wood. But like, it's funny, when you look at a map of who relies on wood, it's really just like Ely. Most of the state is relying on propane and a little bit is relying on fuel oil as the majority of people. And then Ely has like a very strange bullseye where we're all burning wood in our community. So we're special here for some reason. I don't know.
Air reflects it too.
Yeah. Especially when there's an inversion and there's some big
The
burners
city
in
of
town.
Ely
Yeah.
is becoming very.
Well,
Could I say a word or two about heat pumps for clothes dryers? I do know that Bosch makes heat pumps for clothes dryers, and I think the closest dealer for Bosch appliances is Mertz Johnson in Duluth. I have a Bosch dryer. It's not a heat pump, but it's not an external vent. It's a water condensation or something like that. And they're a little more expensive, but I do think that that's sometimes we don't think about just, a dryer. We've had a dryer that runs on this electricity for 20 years. Because they tend to have a long life, but if you're going to replace it, there is the heat pump alternative, and it is ventless, and it's really amazing. When I first put mine in the house, and it's upstairs, so it's not in the basement, I thought maybe there'd be all this moisture in the air, and in the summertime would be horrible if it's a humid day and you add clothes drying into it, but it isn't. That they assimilate the water without the external vent. So I just want to put a good word in for that.
And there's
because you
Inflation
did mention
Reduction
that.
Act money.
Yes.
There is,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I have not seen one of those yet. We don't have a dryer at all. People think it's very weird, but I just don't.
Oh, I know there's many purists
Yeah,
here.
well, that's not why. I mean, not so much why, but we just, it broke. And we just didn't have a chance to replace it. And I calculated how much money we saved not having it, and it was almost $1,000 over the course of the year. And I was like, we're good with we do have a wood backup. So when we have a fire going, we hang up our clothes. But
Well, I just want to mention
That's
that
great.
because that is a reality. It's
Yeah.
not just something down the road.
Yeah.
actually make
I-
the change
I
now.
didn't know that they weren't vented. That's awesome for
Right.
insulation. You don't have a
Right.
hole in your wall.
Right,
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
absolutely.
cool.
I think that's part of the savings too.
Yeah.
is that-
Yeah, just you don't.
Because mine isn't vented and it's not a heat pump. It's-
Yeah,
I bought mine 6 years ago. I don't think they had a heat pump set that.
And there are heat pump water heaters too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you have heat in your basement, you can
yeah. Those just,
catch it and put it into the water.
those just save you money. Those things are great.
Well, and installing those things are places where people may be resistant to it at this point, but that is a place where the guys who do deliver fuel and do, you know, service traditional furnaces could maybe move to doing that instead. And they could always install, a fires solar thermal furnaces too. We're gonna need a lot of people to be installing that. If Fire is moving away from installing them at all, but they do manufacture them. So if you don't want to install it yourself, we're gonna have to have some trained, skilled folks who can do it.
And hot water heat.
No, those are ready to go. If you have an electric water heater already, it's just very easy when that reaches its end of life to just get a new, I had a normal plumber and with, who's skilled in plumbing up here, just install a heat pump water heater. It works
No,
exactly the
she's
same.
talking about radiators.
Oh, that is a thing that exists. It's more prevalent in the UK now, so it's a technology that's getting rolled out at scale in other countries. There are fewer people that can do it up here in the northeast Minnesota. I found someone in Two Harbors who can do it, but he did not call me back. So it certainly exists and it does work down to a very low temperature.
It says that.
But I think it would be hard to, you just have to set it, it would take longer to set it up. You wouldn't be able, with a air source heat pump that's heating air, you can call someone today and they'll come next week. With what you're talking about, you might have to plan some months ahead of time. There certainly would be rebates for it, though. It's, yeah.
Well, maybe we should say thanks to Nick and,
I do have a venture, but I'd like to leave.
oh, yeah, before we quit. We are going to spend some time next meeting talking about nuclear in Minnesota,
Oh, great.
about time. Because nuclear is, in my view and many other people's view, something that is essential to help to keep us away from.
Is
Put it
George
so much.
Erickson still willing to come and
Yeah.
join us?
He died actually.
Oh, he did?
George Erickson
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't
from
know.
Virginia?
No, so he lived in Duluth, I thought.
No, it's Virginia.
Was it Virginia? Oh,
He
okay.
wasn't died yet.
Oh, no.
Okay.
He was too enthusiastic about.
And I'll
Okay,
linger a bit if
thanks, Nick.
anybody had any questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll hand a chunk of one down that way.
So you've already got you already have an idea for next month.